If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
You know who I can do without? I can do without the people in the video store.
Which ones?
All of them. They never rent quality flicks. They always pick the most intellectually devoid movie on the racks.
And now, on with the show.
Hello?
Who is this?
The more impatient version of the person you just spoke to.
I'm sorry. You don't have to be a bitch about it.
Yeah, of course I don't. Eat me.
You hang up on me and I'll cut through your neck until I feel bone.
Well, if you want to be the new version, the killer should be filming the murders.
Yeah, it's like the natural next step in a psycho-slasher innovation. I mean, you film them all real time, and then before you get caught, you upload them into cyberspace.
Making your art as immortal as you. Not to implicate him.
So who do you think is behind the murders?
Well, it's a stab fanatic, clearly. Working on less of a shriekwell and more of a scream-make.
Copyrighted terms, by the way.
Because all there are now are remakes. Only horror the studio's greenlight. I mean, there are still rules, but the rules have changed.
See, you can't just reboot a franchise from scratch anymore. The fans won't stand for it. Black Christmas, Child's Play, Flatliners, that shit doesn't work. But you can't just do a straight sequel either. You gotta build something new, but not too new, or the internet goes bug fucking nuts. It's gotta be part of an ongoing storyline, even if the story shouldn't have been ongoing in the first place. New main characters, yes, but supported by and related to legacy characters. Not quite a reboot, not quite a sequel, like the new Halloween, Saw, Terminator, Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters, fuck, even Star Wars. It always goes back to the original.
But we have to finish the movie.
Who gives a fuck about movies?
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to This Week in Geek.net's Loose Cannon. I am one of your Twig video store clerks. I am Mike the Birdman. But once again, we find ourselves in the town of Woodsboro, but I'm not alone as I track down a serial killer that mysteriously can't be found via caller ID. I'm joined by my good friend, my compatriot, who's been with the show many, many years at this point, from the great state of New Jersey.
Ken from This Anime,
and
Stat.
And Stat. And of course, we have long time now, I can actually say that now, Twig friend, but also the co-host of Do You Even Movie,
David Denoyer, coming to you from the beautiful state of Ohio.
That's right, guys. So we are back here on Loose Cannon. We are continuing our examination and look at the Scream franchise. So last time on the show, we looked at the first three Scream movies with Scream 1, 2, 3, and kind of came up with the, I think it's a pretty safe to say, first one, gold standard, can't touch it, fantastic, really changed the face of horror in the 1990s and going forward. But the sequels were lesser returns. Some good things, some wonderful characters added to the franchise, some great lore added to it, but then it kind of got high off the smell of its own farts and kind of ended in kind of a funny place. And that's where we thought the Scream franchise was going to take an end, was with Scream 3. Imagine our surprise when Scream 4 came out. Now, these movies, obviously we all have a history with them, and as we most often do off the top of the show, we talk about how we got involved or our first kind of memories with these movies. And I remember Scream 4 being the first Scream movie I'd seen in theaters, actually. So,
same.
Dave, this came out, what, 2011, correct?
2011, baby, on the nose.
Yep. So 2011, I had just moved within a couple of years to a new hometown, small town, rural Ontario, and my wife had really been getting into these movies yet again. And I thought, all right, cool, new Scream movie, new cast. Hayden Panettiere I knew of because of the show Heroes and whatnot. This is before she did Nashville, I want to say. And all right, cool. I'm in. I like a lot of the cast from this movie. Nev Campbell's coming back. I don't see how this goes on, but if I've learned anything from the Scream movies, as we discussed last time, the weird lore of Woodsboro goes deep, and it's always a whodunit thing. And one thing that really got me intrigued about this movie is it took the internet into account. And at this point in my career, I was on a couple of different websites. Twig was still going strong in terms of its podcasting. We've been on air since 2007. At this point, I was live streaming cartoons on live stream. And that's where I first met Alex, I want to say, was in and around this like time period. And yeah, just live streaming and blogging was everywhere. Social media was the new hotness. It was really becoming a part of people's lives in a very deep and meaningful way. This is before people really started getting canceled, but this is when that internet culture was starting in its infancy. From the primordial oozes of AOL and Yahoo chat rooms, things were changing in a very real way. So seeing this movie up on the screen and just seeing them talk about live streaming and everything was something very different to me. And again, I like a lot of the cast going in this. So me and Blair saw this, really liked what we saw. And upon re-examination, I like a lot of parts of this movie, but not necessarily the whole. So let's start with Dave. What were some of your initial thoughts when you saw Scream 4?
So, I was, as I said in the last episode, I was a big fan at this time of the original trilogy, and had thought that we were done. And I think it was, I just actually looked it up. It was 2008 that the Weinstein Company announced that there was going to be a sequel in the works. And keep in mind, that's 3 years before we actually got the movie. So I was nervous, to say the least. I was nervous, but I was excited to see a Scream movie in theaters because this was a franchise that I loved dearly. This was new blood that they were putting into it and everything. The story, the trailers, the story that the trailers showed looked really good. So I was very excited to go to the midnight premiere when they still did those on a Thursday night of Scream 4, and I had the absolute best time with it. Really, really liked it. Thought the characters were great. The kills I thought were somehow more brutal, and still do think to this day that this is probably one of the most brutal of the franchise. I think this movie was just the absolute perfect injection of new blood into the old lore. I mentioned last episode about how the first movie was a perfect foundation, and 2 and 3 were kind of the old bones that were laid upon for these later sequels. Even if the bones were weak, they were still a good structure to build off of. And Scream 4 basically puts us right back into Woodsboro with the new characters, but our good old pal Ghostface is there. Gonna go ahead and just drop the pertinent deets right now. Scream 4, 2011, rated R for strong horror violence and gore, language, and some teen drinking, Birdman.
Oh my God, no, not that.
1 hour and 51 minutes. 10 years have passed, and Sidney Prescott, who has put herself back together thanks to her writing, is visited by the Ghostface Killer. Pretty weak synopsis. Basically what happens is Sydney is on a book tour, and her book tour takes her to the good place of Woodsboro. There is some of her family that still lives in Woodsboro, and what do you know, there's also a Ghostface Killer back that's knocking off some of Jill's friends. Jill is her, is it her niece? Cousin?
Yeah, it's her cousin, I think.
Cousin, okay, yeah, cousin, yeah, you're right. It is one of those movies that I feel like gets better with each revisit, personally, for me. What I really, really liked about Scream 4 especially was that you did not feel safe. And I mentioned that last episode as well. This was the one where it really started getting into that territory of you couldn't lose people at the drop of a hat. Even people that you expect to lose, you don't even know when you're going to lose them. And then people that you didn't expect to lose, you lose them just like that. I mean, it was a movie that put me on the edge of my seat the entire time watching in theaters, especially with the reveal and everything at the end. I think this is a very strong entry in this franchise.
Agreed. Yeah. Ken, what are your thoughts on this one?
So I was working in the theater at the time, so I ended up seeing most of it within just going in and out of the theater. But overall, this one holds up way better than some of the others. But I think the thing that this movie suffers from is its new cast doesn't hold a candle to the previous old cast in terms of just the new fresh blood. Some of them survive. Obviously, we got Hayden Panettiere's character Kirby. She comes back later, and I think she's probably the one standout of the movie, to be perfectly frank. And I think that allowed them to bring that character back in what I still call it 5. I don't care, but 5 and 6. I think that really helped in terms of kind of solidifying this pseudo trilogy, because it's not necessarily as much a trilogy compared to the original trilogy.
Did you hear what the cast was calling Scream, aka Scream 5, because of how the way it's typed out?
No.
5 cream.
I mean, like, yeah, I just called it 5. I didn't really care.
It's that approach that they did with Halloween 2018 that I don't mind it, but it is fucking confusing when you start doing, hey, let's go see Halloween. Well, that already came out in 78. Not this one. This is Halloween 2018. Hey, let's go see Scream. Well, that came out in 96. Not this one. This is 5 cream.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, people in marketing, like, guys, it's okay to rewrite stuff. It really is.
People got afraid of numbers. That's basically what it is, because sequelitis hit so bad.
Oh yeah, because like you look at the Saw franchise and they're in the fucking double digits now. Like it's
officially now.
Officially, like it's ridiculous. But yeah, like Scream 4, I felt changed the board in some fairly significant ways. Again, this is where it really leaned into the humor, really leaned into the meta commentary. And I think it became better for it. But Ken's right. There's a lot of really forgettable characters in this, with the exception of Kirby. Even the killer reveals, like, okay.
Well, they pull a 2. They pull a 2 where it's basically like, hey, just wait till the trial, baby. Hey, just wait till the trial, baby. Oh, there's not going to be a trial. They only like one survivor, so I'm going to kill you. They literally duplicate Scream 2 again, but do it in a way that I think makes more sense, especially to the social media, advantageous that we have now, to where people are so hungry for fame, and it can be in anybody's hand if they know how to do things or be in the right place, right time, right. I like that element to it. Spoilers, Jill, Sydney's cousin, is revealed to be the killer because she's trying to basically get out of Sydney's shadow, because everybody knows Sidney Prescott because of the Woodsboro murders and the Stab franchise, and she's lived in Sydney's shadow this entire time, and she wants her fame, so she concocts with her boyfriend this idea to go ahead and make a new Stab movie by literally having these kills filmed, which I love that little add-on to it, because they did do that in 2, obviously. But to this degree of live streaming them and recording them and putting them all together in a compilation and whatnot, it just really played into where we were at in time with social media and all that stuff. But on top of that, you also have the return of Sidney Prescott that does not feel stupid, mind you. Even the return of Gale doesn't feel stupid, because Gale and Dewey by this point have, they're still together. They haven't had their separation that comes in the next movie. And they're trying to make things work, but there's still some issues and whatnot. And you got Sydney, who's on her book tour, and she's trying to just live her life and thinks that everything is okay now. But, naturally, everything comes back. But then what I love about Sydney in this movie especially is she is not there to fuck around. And that's one of my favorite lines from her when she hits Jill with that bullet at the end is, "Don't fuck with the original." That is the epitome. I know I keep using that word, but again, that is the epitome of a fucking survivor right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also love the showdown at the Stab marathon. That is such a fun scene.
Oh yeah, like there was a guy that I talked about in our last episode called CZ's World, and in one of his videos they talk about the history of Stab. And in the Stab marathon that they show in this movie, again, you can watch Stab alongside everybody else and you see a different director's cut. You see the rebooted thing, how things are lining up. Like, it's really kind of incredible the amount of detail that goes into these movies. Like, I had a friend of mine in college who later became a script supervisor on several very large and very well-known television shows. And I'm ultimately surprised by how much the director and the script supervisor and the script writer all have to work in concert to make sure everything, if it's on the page, it's on the screen. If it's on the screen, it has to be on the page. It all has to sync up in just the synergy between everything can really blow your mind. And
Yeah.
I think if anything the Scream movies do well, especially as things become a little less convoluted, I would argue, in 4, 5, and 6, the plots become more intricate but less complicated, if that makes any kind of sense. Just, I like what they've done here. The world building to Woodsboro feels justified's maybe not the right word, but it feels like it makes a lot more sense. And you're right, when you talk about these two kids who want to gain their own degree of fame, always living in the shadow of somebody else, the unhingedness of, psychos and everything. I really like the way the Scream franchise changed its direction. It literally felt like a proper reboot without becoming a requel, which would become the next 2 movies, which we'll kind of get it in just a moment here. I like the new killers. I like Charlie. I really like Kirby, but I've always had a crush on Hayden Panettiere. But yeah, there's just a lot about this I really enjoy, and them trying to reinterpret the rules. I like how the one character is like, "But I'm gay," and the characters and Ghostface is like, "Wait, what?"
does like the head tilt and then stabs. I think what is important to say about Scream 4 is this was Wes Craven's not only last Scream film, but his last film in general, because we lost him, I think, like a couple of years later.
2015, I think, yeah.
Yeah, 2015. So yeah, this is 4 years before we lose him. And it's his last Scream film, his last movie, and it has that spirit of that original trilogy that was his baby, obviously. But then on top of that, too, I think what's important with the style of this and Craven's touch on Scream is that there is a lot of love for the property and these characters in this one, especially because, we get teased on losing Sydney at one point, and, and then it leads into a beautiful conclusion in the hospital and everything. But, you only brought back, 3 characters? Because we got Dewey, Gale, and Sydney, and that's basically it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you brought back those 3 characters. You didn't touch either of them to a point of knocking them off. And then we move on into the next movie where, we bring it all back around. But it's because of 4 laying that ground of Sydney still being in the shit, basically, and, trying to recoup her life and everything. And then when, Ghostface comes back, I think what Craven was doing with this franchise in general was he was setting it up for it to be taken over by somebody. And I know that's weird to say because, it's his baby and whatnot, but at the same time, I think in some aspect, he kind of just wanted to have that last run with it and knew the script was good and knew that the characters were going to be treated well to what they were. And that last touch, even though it's just a throwaway line in some cases of "don't fuck with the original," that is absolutely what they did not do with that next movie. They actually respected the original and tied it into a new blood even further than what we have in 4. And I think there is a lot of love that he leaves behind in this movie for the series.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, just having legacy characters come back like Gale and Dewey and Sheriff Judy. Again, there's just everybody evolves. You see the characters are coming to a new place. And you're right. This feels like Wes Craven was like, okay, I know I can trust you with this. This does feel like a good handoff point. And there aren't too many movie franchises where I think handle the passing of the torch moment well. My biggest complaint about this movie is I can't remember a lot of specifics, and I just saw this last night. But what I do remember is how this movie made me feel and how it made me think about it. And I think if a movie doesn't have stuff that sticks with you, like here's a memorable scene, like here's RoboCop blowing that guy's dick off, for example.
Yeah.
There aren't many moments in this that say, oh yeah, I remember this, but I remember characters. And what you just said, Dave and Ken, I remember seeing this as a good transition point. And I think that's where this is the real strength of where the Scream franchise really starts to come into its own. Like the creature has begun to evolve into its second form. And when I think about the next two movies we're going to talk about in just a moment here, this is where I feel Scream became more my franchise. And what I mean by that is, Dave and Ken, I've known you guys literally for years at this point now. And you guys know I'm an 80s and 90s horror baby. Getting me into modern horror, sometimes it's great. Like you get stuff like The Babadook, you get stuff like Longlegs, Train to Busan. I don't know. I'm just naming modern horror movies, but you know, I grew up on your Chuckies, your Freddies, your Jasons, whatever. But sometimes you find some unexpected gems. Like I will go to bat for the movie Spookies, even though it is bloody fucking stupid.
I love Spookies, but I will go to bat for it too.
But yeah, it's like this. I felt like it talked to me in a way that respected the love that I had for what came before and gave me something new. And the fact that it made a horror movie fan out of my wife who only really likes the teenage slasher horror movies, and you're not your Jasons, not your Freddys, but she likes your Screams. I Know What You Did Last Summers, your urban legend, stuff that's a little more grounded, a little less supernatural, a little more... elevated's not the right word, and cerebral certainly not. Simplified, yeah.
Well,
and that's not a knock either.
No, but I think also what you're forgetting is not only is Craven back behind the camera, but Williamson's also the writer, the only writer on Scream 4, and it feels the closest to the first one. You could literally watch Scream and Scream 4 back to back and still be able to follow us into 5 and 6 and 7. I mean, I feel like it's kind of odd to say that, but at the same time, there's really no critical points that happen in 2 or 3 that really carry over into 4 as being an important story element, except for the fact that, you know, you have had the Stab franchise. That's literally about it. They feel 1 and 4 feel the closest together in the entire run of the series, even though we'll get into 5 here in a second. 5 literally ends at the same place that the showdown of 1 ends. So, I mean, it's just kind of like 4 felt like that return to formula, that return to Woodsboro too, for that matter, because it literally is 2 and 3 do not take place in Woodsboro, but 4 does. So it feels like that return to formula. And again, that final love letter to the creator of his baby, and not necessarily saying that he like set it up to be passed on, because I mean, the ending of 4 is left open in a sense, but I mean, it gives you that premise that he knew what he wanted to do with the series if he had any idea at all that he was going to be leaving this plane at some point. I feel like there is a lot of love in this movie.
From what I heard, he wanted to do another one, but
yeah, he did.
His health deteriorated quite quickly, and it resulted in the franchise sitting for 11 years.
Well, don't forget, the year that he passes, the Scream TV series comes out.
Correct.
Which I've never seen.
It's good. I've only seen seasons 1 and 2. I haven't seen the third one that Queen Latifah produced or directed. I can't remember which. But Hen has seen it and said it was good. But the first 2 seasons of Scream are excellent. I cannot recommend that show enough. As a side note to anybody that's a fan of the Scream franchise, if you have not seen the series that they did, it's absolutely worth a watch. The first season especially just has a great feeling, again, of that return to formula that 4 brought us back to. It's got some great characters, some really insane kills for being on MTV, mind you. But yeah, I think that the fact that he did leave us and they didn't know what to do with it, and what we got with 5 is a testament to how much love there was for Wes and his creation.
So before we jump in the 5 here, very quick question about the Scream TV series. Mm-hmm. Is it alternate universe, alt timeline, or
there's no characters returning or anything. It's a completely new, fresh take on Scream.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because
even the Ghostface mask is different.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was always curious to know how it worked into the timeline, and now that we exist in the world of multiverses, you never know.
You could have not seen a single Scream film and go watch the series and still be able to make sense of all of it.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I mean, 4 was a wonderful kickoff point to what the franchise became. And as we transition into Scream 5, what year was Scream 5?
So Scream 5 comes out in 2022. Yep.
So this was a pandemic one.
That's
And
correct.
this is something that obviously I didn't see in theaters, but I remember watching at home with Blair and really getting into. And I have really this is a very memorable memory for me, is I remember looking at Blair and saying to her, this franchise has changed. And I don't mean that for the better. It really feels like this is going in a good direction. You don't need the Sidney Prescott character, but the fact that she's there, great. It's like things had moved on to a point where the franchise, it wasn't held down so much by the weight of its own lore. It felt like the story was now taking center stage, and the whodunit and everything became more and more interesting. And the fact that Jack Quaid is a bad guy, fucking Boimler from Lower Decks, Huey from The Boys.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly great turn. Love that.
I like the thing with Scream 5 is that Jack Quaid is the obvious killer, and then the film immediately makes you dismiss him, and then
he's aloof.
And then
he's like your comic relief aloof, because he's just like, I love these stab movies as I'm watching them, like in this hotel room or hospital. I can't remember which, but it was just like he becomes an adorable aloof almost.
Yeah. So you're just disarmed, and then psych.
Yeah,
it's the truth. What you thought was the obvious truth is the truth.
Mikey Madison's reveal of the, I'm not the killer. I know. I am. Like, fuck. Like, there is just something about a killer that completely just puts themselves out there that is the most terrifying thing. And that also leads me to a point with these later sequels. I think the weakest points of any Scream film after you get away from the first one is the killer reveals. Not necessarily the reveals themselves, but the performances of, ooh, I'm crazy. Some of them do it really well. Some of them go over the top. Some of them did not know the assignment and made their own assignment. And I feel like Mikey Madsen and Jack Quaid are the closest, once again, to embodying that spirit of the first movie.
Yeah, like these guys feel like a good successor to Stu and Billy. And
yeah,
I really dig that. Like, this may be my second favorite Scream movie. And that I was unexpected, because again, going into it last night, rewatching these for the show today, I was like, man, this is really frigging good. And I really like what they've done with this. And again, this deals with a legacy character where they establish, here are the new rules, as Mindy, the new Randy stand-in. Wonderful casting, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she says to them, well, in a requel, nobody's safe. Anybody can die. Even legacy characters can become cannon fodder at this point. And when they kill Dewey, that is a brutal death. That is not a gentle death.
So brutal, so harsh, and we know it's coming, but we are still in denial of it. Like, I've seen this movie at least 4 times now, and every time his death is coming, I'm just like, they can't do it. Like, it's because you have to understand that at this point in Dewey's timeline, he's lost Gale. They've broken up. Is he still the sheriff, or is he just carrying a gun?
He was forced into retirement.
Yeah. So he's just kind of doing the Dewey thing on his own private dick style kind of thing. And one of the biggest things that we've buried here lead wise is that Billy Loomis is technically back in this movie, because real quick, pertinent deets. Yes. Scream, aka Scream 5, aka 5 Cream, 2022, rated R, 1 hour and 54 minutes, and rated R for strong bloody violence, language throughout, and some sexual references.
Yeah.
But no, Scream 5 is, you have this idea. It's 25 years later. So the synopsis says 25 years after the streak or brutal murders shocked the quiet town of Woodsboro, a new killer dons the Ghostface mask and begins targeting a group of teenagers to resurrect secrets from the town's already dead past. You're dealing with the offspring of those who were originally involved in the Woodsboro murders from 1996. So you've got a basis here to where the kids of these adults are trying to solve the murders, one of which being Billy Loomis's daughter, played by Melissa Barrera, who is Sam Carpenter in the movie. The opening attack is her sister, played by Jenna Ortega, and it's brutal. And she didn't even die. It's brutal, though. Like, and she goes through absolute hell, and that just sets the tone for this movie. 5 and 6 are extremely mean slasher films. And what I mean by that is the kills are brutal, the kills are sometimes quick or sometimes drawn out, and you do not know when they are going to happen. There is a kill in this movie that still gets me every time, which is where Sheriff Judy is going out to get sushi for her and her son. Her son's in her house taking a shower, and Ghostface calls Judy, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna kill your little boy next. She races home, is running up to the door, and Ghostface pops out of the bushes and kills her. So you're thinking, oh, okay. So he just wanted to kill her. It was all a jazz. No, then he goes inside and kills her son too. And it's just like the unsafe points in this movie really bring home that this is a horror film. This is a really, like, balls to the wall. We are going to make you hurt, and you're going to ask us why. And we're going to tell you it's because you're watching a Scream sequel in this new Legacy series. And this Legacy series does not fuck around.
And it dropped the humor in the kills in a lot of ways. Like I said, the kills became more personal. Like, for example, Scream 4, one of its weakest points, I felt, was there's a kill where they kill Anthony Anderson, who is one of the cops, him and Adam Brody.
The Bruce Willis joke, yeah. Fuck Bruce Willis.
Yeah, it's like, that's lame. Like, he gets stabbed in the forehead and he doesn't die for like a minute.
No, he walks like fucking 15 feet, even though he got stabbed in the brain.
Oh yeah, like, now I've seen some things on the internet I wish I could unsee, but you can survive pretty devastating injuries, but you're not surviving that.
No, and you're not walking 15 feet. You are dead. That knife hits the cortex of your brain. You are dead.
Yeah, like you're not moving. In this one, when Judy's son gets stabbed in the throat and you hear his death gurgle, he's struggling to survive. Like, it's not pretty. Like, that's a cruel death.
Well, you said Dewey's death. Dewey is literally stabbed in the front, stabbed in the back, and then as Bowie knives, have that beautiful curve, they just glide along his flesh and like basically cut him in half, even though he does not go into pieces. Like, it's brutal.
He's armed clone, basically.
Yeah, and that leads all into what I love the most about Scream 5 is that you have the return to, I keep saying return to formula. You have the return to formula, though, with everybody is a suspect. And they take that to great lengths in the finale because they have the giant house party at Billy Loomis's house, or at Stu Macher's house. So we're right back to, again, where the showdown went down in the original one. But then you have everybody being like, well, I'm going to go get some beers out of the garage. All right, you want me to go with you? No, you might be the killer. And, like, they're serious. Like, they're not, it's played for jokes, but they're serious. Like, that happens like at least 3 or 4 times. There's like fake outs, and then that beautiful one with what's her face being like, I'm not the fucking killer. Yeah, I know, I am. Bang! And then you have that beautiful scene of Gail and Sydney arriving to the house when Mikey Madsen comes out trying to play like, oh my god, there's a killer inside. And they both together are just like, what do you think?
No,
it's a trap.
Yeah,
like, fuck
they
it.
start shooting at her.
Yeah, it's so good. So I love that you are both giving the original content its due, but also building off of it to a point that carries us into the next movie with these characters that are genuinely good characters. And again, one of which is literally Billy Loomis's daughter, who does not know if she has the blood urge until she unleashes on fucking Jack Quaid. My God.
Oh yeah, like she doesn't let him have a moment, and he's like, What about my movie? Stab, 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 stab,
Yeah.
stab, stab, stab. Like,
And
holy shit, she rains blows on him.
And then in leading that into 6, which we'll talk about, here in a second, then leads into that whole thing of what would happen in normal day society and does happen all the time with people getting online and being like, well, actually, here's my theory on how she was actually the killer and he was innocent and framed and all that stuff. It plays on the current events and the current status that we have with obsession with true crime and wanting to be a detective through the screen of our computer and whatnot. It plays on that so beautifully that we are stuck into the story and obviously want to see what happens in the further adventures of Scream. And personally, 6, first time I saw it in theaters, I was not a big fan of it in regards to the ending. Having watched it recently for this podcast, I think 6 is actually a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much about 6 that works.
The thing with 5 and 6 is this cast of characters I like every single one of these characters and remember every single one of these characters.
Yeah.
And I think that is the strength of this.
And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them too.
Yeah.
Like we talked about too many cooks in the kitchen back in 2 and 3. There are a lot of cooks in this kitchen, but this kitchen is flowing freely because everybody's saying yes, chef, and calling out where they're going. And I love that.
Right.
Yeah, like there's so much about the new cast, like with, I think the brother's name is Chad, with Mindy, with Sam and Tara. You get an entire, likable new cast, a fairly decent killer reveal, a way to have some legacy characters continue, and they leave Sydney in a place where she doesn't need to come back to Woodsboro. Gail is there, and I'm okay with that. They did get rid of Dewey, so his story's now done. They've made it to such a point where if Sidney Prescott never gets mentioned again, they could. Unfortunately, that's not the way the wind seems to be blowing now, but whatever. I like where this series went. And the fact that the daughter is the Sam is the secret daughter of Billy Loomis. Now that could have been fucking cheesy. It could have went the opposite way. Like, to tie this to the Halloween franchise, this could have been the passing of Michael Myers' evil to Jamie. And that's what was always intended.
Yeah.
Here we're seeing the cursed bloodline of Billy Loomis. Like, this was always you. Now you just need to let it out. And that ferocity, that tenacity, that brutality saves her family.
Yeah.
That could have been handled in a really goofy fucking way. And it could have been fucking stupid. Now, CG Skeet Ulrich is a little weird, but it's fine.
It's fine because, going back to the David Gordon Green franchise, this is a franchise that easily delves into the issue of trauma and does it in a way that relates to anybody that has had not a similar experience. Like, all people out there listening right now that your dad was a serial killer and, you only found out recently. No, I'm not saying that. It deals with trauma in the aspect of what that does to you over time and what that carries with you and how people don't know that she's Billy Loomis's daughter on top of that. But I think also what we have failed to mention is, Wes Craven was the last director on 4, so we had to have new blood brought in once again for, 5 and 6, and that was Matt Bettinelli-Alpin and Tyler Gillette. Those are the gentlemen that brought us Southbound, Ready or Not, Abigail this year for that matter. You have a really good team of directors on this, not to mention a good team of writers that also wrote on those movies. And they absolutely had love for this series and the franchise, and you can see it in this movie because they they straight up use the bones of one to make their movie because they have such admiration for it. And they do it in a way that I think if Wes had the chance to see this movie, I think he would have been genuinely happy with it.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Literally going back to my letterbox, my review of 5 was just, they made Wes proud.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
So ultimately we can say 5 Cream is amazing.
Yes,
and is a wonderful send up to the series, where we move into Scream 6 here, which is the latest entry as of this recording, with 7 supposed to be in theaters for 2026. What's going to happen with that script? I don't think anybody knows at this point, but we'll talk about that.
if we still get Sidney Prescott again, I'm going to be very curious, because what they've done with this movie, especially,
they've already now.
I know, but like at the same time, there's still time. Like I hate being that way, but I've had my dreams crushed so many times.
They can pull a fast one on us.
Yeah,
they can pull a fast one on us. I'm not denying that.
Yeah. So again, this was yet another pandemic movie, but I also seem to recall a lot of really clever advertising for this one. The fact that they took us out of Woodsboro again. Awesome. They set us in New York, and for once, Jason is not after us, nor Chud.
And they set it at Halloween too.
Yeah, like it's got it's got a wonderful setup here, and the fact that it carries the plot line from Scream 5 forward, where it talks about Richie and his girlfriend as people who were set up by Sam. Sam was the mastermind behind the latest Woodsboro killing, and she's become sort of a pariah, so she's trying to live her own life, but understanding people know who you are.
Yeah.
And it haunts her, and she's always trying to protect Tara, and Tara's like, you need to let me live my own life, and to the point where she's almost kind of reckless with it. But the fact that the killer reveal in this, I fucking love in this.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm thinking that's really good. And they brought back a legacy character besides Gail. Kirby did not expect that. And Hayden Panettiere is such a wonderful actress when you give her something to work from.
Well, and a great red herring in this.
Yeah.
A great red herring. I think what I like most about Scream 6 is that you have a serious, and I mean serious, location change that could have really fucked things up. Moving into New York was a very interesting decision, but when you take in the aspect of them going to college and also wanting to get away from Woodsboro, completely makes sense. I think what I love most about Scream 6 in general is that what you said, Ken, these are characters that I genuinely enjoy spending time with. So when you put them in a new setting, give them the same old Ghostface problem, but give them a new environment to where danger is even more apparent and available than it was before, oh hell, then you literally do not know the steps that this movie is going to take, where the directions are going to go. I mean, for fuck's sake, at one point, Ghostface has a shotgun inside of a bodega. I mean,
yeah,
I never would have saw that. And there are people that genuinely hate that scene. They think that is absolutely where,
love
quote
that
unquote,
scene.
Yeah, they think that's quote unquote
There's
where the
so many
franchise
good
jumped the
scenes
shark.
in this.
I think there is too.
Scenes.
I will say, to debate you two, I'm not really in love with the killer reveal in this one. I appreciate what they did.
I think it is over the top goofy.
Yes, it's 100% over the top goofy, but I don't know if it's goofy in the sense of being good. I think it's goofy in the sense of, again, how we said in the previous episode, choices. There are choices that are made with these performances. Now, I will say that the reveal of Dermot Mulroney being involved, I completely called a mile away. I did not foresee that his daughter was still alive, even though the more I watch it now,
that was a great fake out.
Yeah, that is a pretty solid fake out.
That is the best fake out.
Yeah, so I mean, dear listener, if you have not seen the movie, the reveal, spoilers, is that Dermot Mulroney is the father of Jack Quaid with his daughter, who is a roommate that gets murdered when she's living with Sam and her group, and also the brother is in there.
That specific sequence of them getting away with the precarious drop with the ladder, it just so
yeah.
good.
Well, yeah. I think also actually, hey, real quick, pertinent deets on Scream 6, 2023, rated R, 2 hours and 2 minutes, rated R 4. Strong bloody violence and language throughout, and brief drug use. Once again, directed by Matt Bellatini-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, and written by the same guy, James Vanderbilt and Guy. The survivors of Ghostface killings leave Woodsboro behind and start a fresh new chapter in New York City. As Birdman and I mentioned, this is basically the story of them going to college. They are trying to get over the events of the first movie, go continue with their lives. Of course, Sam is now a pariah because people think that she was the one that framed Jack Quaid and is actually the murderer. And then Ghostface comes back, and Havoc greets again. I think one of the best sequences in the entire film is the train sequence. The subway sequence still gives me chills to this day.
Yeah.
The subway
and
sequence
the way that
in question.
ends.
Yeah, the subway sequence in question is they are going out, trying to get back to their apartment on Halloween, or wait, have they escaped the bodega? No, they're on a party. Yeah, they're going to a party or something along those lines. And there's Ghostface on the train. But then there's another Ghostface on the train, and another Ghostface on the train, and then you start to see one Ghostface moving closer and closer. It is so tension built that when What's-Her-Face gets stabbed, you feel that knife for her, because it's so terrifying of a scene to be in that situation, surrounded by people, and no one can help you.
There's a reason they put it front and center in the marketing.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean that and the bodega scene were the two that I remember heavily. But again, going back to the brutality, Birdman, with the Bowie knife and stuff, there's a lot of death in this movie that is both off screen and shocking. The reveal of What's-Her-Face's boyfriend in the shower, for one, is so fucking grotesque and brutal. Like, he is
the
just
refrigerator
a bloody...
kill in the beginning.
The opening. Well,
the opening.
The opening of What's-Her-Face being killed from Ready or Not. Samara Weaving. Samara Weaving's death is super brutal, even though it's quick. But yeah, the refrigerator, the body in the refrigerator, and all that stuff. I mean, the movie sets a principle to, if horror fans really like these movies, let's go with the horror. And not to mention Scream 6, I did not, and I want to completely be clear, did not see them paying homage to Scream 1 through 5. But your killer, who is Jack Quaid, has his collection, right?
Mm-hmm. Richie,
yeah. Richie has gotten this collection over the years of all the Ghostface costumes and knives and evidence and everything, and just that reveal on stage, and then the showdown taking place there, just chef's kiss. I mean, it's just a love letter once again to this series and the way it's going with these legacy characters. But I will say, if there is one thing that I have an issue with in this movie, there are a lot of stabs to many people that still somehow survive.
Yeah, like, one of my biggest problems with this, but I don't know how you do it, because the problem is, if you do it, it's predictable, but if you don't do it, it's lame.
Gail Weathers should have died. Yes.
Yeah.
Gail Weathers should have died.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you kill Gail in this,
really
it's predictable.
Thought Gail was dead.
Yeah,
I thought
same
she was
here.
too.
And they do it, to put a very nerdy twist on this, they give her the Duke death. And what I mean by that is, in G.I. Joe the movie, after Optimus Prime had died in Transformers 1986, that didn't go over well. Very well documented fact. Duke is the leader of G.I. Joe. And at one point, when there was a whole bunch of drama, but it was said they didn't want to kill Duke because they saw what happened. And there's a line that's dubbed in ADR where you hear Doc, who's the medic for G.I. Joe, saying, "That's okay, Duke's in a coma, he'll be fine." Mm-hmm. This is what this feels like. This is them pulling the cord as we need to keep Courtney Cox in this. She's one of our last legacy characters. We have her and Sydney. Sydney gets yeeted in regards that, where's Sidney Prescott? She took her family. She's in hiding. You don't need to worry about her. And that's the last we ever hear about her, really.
Well, I think we also forgot to mention that last movie, she got called back specifically by Dewey, because Dewey puts together that, there's something going on in Woodsboro. It's tied to you. Do you have a gun? I'm Sidney Prescott. Of course I have a fucking gun. She gets called back to Woodsboro specifically because Dewey reaches out to her. This one, they leave her out of it. And that is because she was not they did not want to pay her what she was asking. So that's why she's not in this movie, and why she may be coming back, why she hopefully is coming back for 7. So, I mean, I think it was a shitty move to leave her out of the series. But that said, what they did with 6 especially, I'm ready for another movie with Sam and her sister and her friends. Because, I mean, I really do like this new generation of Scream and everything. And again, going back to the TV series, that's one thing I really also liked about the series, was the characters they got were great for it. And if you have good writing and characters you care about, and you're not going in specifically for a body count and a body count on top of like the kills and the gore and everything, this is a genuinely well written and well acted and well paced movie. That the only weakness I really have with it is, well, two weaknesses, is that I think Gale should have died, but also I think your killers make choices at the end, and that's really all I can say.
I mean, for me, yeah, I would have killed Gale. I just don't know how I would have done it. Seeing Ghostface use weapons, ranged weapons, is certainly a choice. I'm just going to put this out into the universe. Can Ghostface use a sniper rifle? Yes. And here's what I mean by that. You could make that kill fairly dramatic if you wanted to, because now they're not above having Ghostface use guns, and I'm fine with that, whatever. But the fact that most of the Woodsboro 4 survive, they all survive. Mindy survives, the brother survives, Sam and Tara survives. That's a problem, because you do want to up the stakes every time. The problem is, I think in some ways, but it's a good problem to have, this entire cast is likable.
Yeah.
Are they as likable as Sam, or as Sydney, Gale, and Dewey? On their own merits, kind of. This is the Scream core for the new.
Definitely agree.
Yeah, like this is a very likable cast, but who do you kill without pissing people off? And unfortunately, Mindy's brother is the easiest to go. He's likable. He's a dude. He's a final boy. Makes sense. To kill Mindy, I don't think they will, because if they do, they're going to course correct for what they did with Randy and Jamie Kennedy. I think that would be a real fucking problem if they did that. To kill Sydney, you better have balls, and you better have yourself a way fucking out.
It's just like trying to make Kirby the killer. Making Kirby the killer, I was not going to be on board with, because I was just like, that just wouldn't fit in her formula, in my opinion. Because
and even from interviews, they said we never intended for Kirby to be the killer, but we always wanted her to be the red herring.
Yeah, no, and she's a great red herring. Absolutely is. I just, if that was the direction they were going to take, that may have been my jumping off point of okay, maybe they're losing their way. And I will say I am a bit nervous about 7, because 5 and 6 have been so good that I don't know if we're going to have like a Maxine kind of thing with like X and Pearl, to where it's just like X was great, Pearl's a fucking masterpiece, Maxine, it's a movie.
There are behind the scenes things that I am aware of that are complete dumbfuckery is basically the word I like to explain it. And I'm not gonna. You can look it up.
Yeah. Don't expel on it further. No. I get it. Yeah, no, I get. I think I'm just nervous because you've made a really good house of cards. Please don't put the one in now that's going to make it all tumbling down. And I've got a friend who is currently going through the Scream franchise and actually just finished 6 about a month ago. And her biggest complaint with the entire franchise so far is the killer reveals. She thinks that it's weak once you get past Billy and Stu. And to some degree, I do agree with that. But at the same time, I can still hop on for every one of these rides and not have a bad time.
Yeah, like 5 and 6, I love more than I thought I would. I remember being angry at the time, but I remember also thinking nostalgia goggles cannot blind you. And we're going to talk about this in our ranking show, which you'll be hearing on the site very shortly. I'm sure you'll be sick of hearing the word Woodsboro by the end of all this, but I like the direction the franchise is now going. The problem is, as you just said, you have a house of cards. All it takes is a stiff wind, the wrong movement. And my problem is with this, you can go one of two ways, I think. And this will be our final thoughts on this. You can go Freddy's Dead or New Nightmare. We are clearly in New Nightmare now, which is fine. But you are one step away from doing Freddy's Dead or Jason Goes to Hell. You are one step away from fucking this up. Are you going to get the weird brilliance of Jason X? Probably not. you're not getting Freddy versus Jason out of this. This is going to have to be its own thing, and it's going to be so hard to do, because if you bring back Sydney, okay, we're bringing out the hits. Come on, can you come sing "Don't Stop Believing" again? Yeah, sure, I guess. Or, if you play the greatest hits too many times, you ruin it. If you kill Gale, that's predictable. You kill Sydney, that's brave, but then you have exhausted your golden parachute. Is this where they pull the parachute?
I think you have to, at this point, really take into consideration, where would Sydney Prescott be at this point in her life? Because, she'd
be Laurie Strode. She'd be in the middle of fucking nowhere with a sniper rifle.
Let's face it. So 25 years later was Scream 5. So that means that 26 years later is Scream 6. So are they really going to give us 30 years later with Scream 7, or are they going to do a direct sequel from 6 is the question. And in doing so, why would Sydney come back when these last movies have had nothing to do with her? Unless you're going to do something in regards to Melissa and Sydney having to cross paths further with the whole idea of being Billy's daughter. I don't know. I just, at this point, you're getting a little... what's the word I want to use? You're getting a little tricky to balance out this scale to where every fan is going to be, well, I mean, not every fan, but your core fans are going to still be on board. I think you would really have to figure out the proper placement for Sydney at this point in this franchise story. What is going on with her character? How does she tie back into it? That's going to be, that's going to be the hardest part to find.
Yeah, because literally you've got this chessboard, and you are in such a good position where you can call checkmate and you can walk away. But do you want to gloat? But one wrong move is all it takes. And that's the problem, I think, anyway. Yeah. If you make one wrong mistake with Scream 7, you have completely destroyed 5, 6.
And I would challenge the listeners as we wrap up. If you want to take a fresh breath into the franchise, literally watch 1, 4, 5, and 6. You will have the exact same takeaway that you would at leaving 2 and 3 out, as you would including them, in my opinion. I think your core story of the Woodsboro element that is in 1 and 4, especially, that carries into 5, and then takes us to New York City in 6. I think there is a lot to really like about this new batch of characters that really does not pay homage to 2 and 3's characters that we really had, as we said, too many cooks in the kitchen. This is the amount of cooks that are all working together, and that's why these movies work. And that would be my final words on 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, so my final words are going to be, these are great. I think these are the Scream franchise for Gen Z and Y, which is great. I'm glad you guys are getting horror that treats you differently than how it treated me, Dave, and Ken. It's something that I think you can enjoy. That's a wonderful new cast of characters for you to get attached to and cheer for without the weight of the past necessarily hanging so heavy over everything where you need to know 30 years of lore. This is great. I'm really happy where the franchise is. I'm excited to see where it goes, but I'm nervous. So Ken, your final thoughts.
I love 5 and 6. I think they are fantastic. And 4 is somewhat all right. I think the cast is just not up to snuff. And with 5 and 6, they nailed it on their casting, and this cast is amazing. And I would have loved to have seen them continue, but I know the behind-the-scenes stuff is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So, guys, thank you for joining us here on Loose Cannon. What are your thoughts on the Scream franchise? Again, send us an email, feedback@thisweekingeek.net, or you can interact with us on Blue Sky, where we are just This Week in Geek on there. I'm sure it's on our social website. Alex will be able to direct you. Like I said, we do still have a Twitter that is active, that will still be active until the heat death of the universe, or until Elon becomes a dictator in not only just name. In addition to that, me, Dave, and Ken are going to come back, and we're going to rank all these movies. Where do we sit on 6 movies of a franchise? I think the answer may just surprise you, but I think we're going to have a time getting out of here because we got to catch the train, and there could be a guy in a ghost face mask with a Bowie knife that I don't want to fuck with. So anyway, guys, we are going to get out of here. So from the great state of New Jersey, we have been
Ken from This Anime.
And the land that time forgot.
David Denoyer of Do You Even Movie, coming to you from Ohio.
And I've been Mike the Birdman, saying be excellent to each other, be kind, rewind, and we'll catch you guys next time right here on thisweekingeek.net.
What are you gonna do now, huh? Make a scary phone call to me? Pop out of that closet in a ghost face mask? No. Because you're the villain. And the villain dies at the end. Those are the rules.
I'm introducing a new rule.
What would that be, huh? Well,
Never fuck with the daughter of a serial killer.
Are either one of these any good? Sir,
What?
are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Quick, change the channel.
You're wasting your life making shit! Nobody cares! These movies are terrible!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.